All right, we are live with EXP Monthly March's game of 2026, which was Metal Gear Solid. And I am here with both Blue, Game Dave, Justin Yates, and Shadow. Quickly, we'll just kind of go around the room. We can start with you, Blue, just if you want to do a quick introduction beyond your name.
Alrighty. I've been around for a couple of these EXP Monthly shindigs. I'm just a dude who plays video games sometimes. I kind of play everything except really horror games. So mostly on PC, most entirely on PC at this point, or Steam Deck. This was the first time that I played the original Metal Gear Solid. I played Metal Gear Solid 5 some time ago when that first came out. I like very briefly played the first game, like at friends' houses or whatever, but I never actually like got through like even probably the first like section of the game. So my first go.
All right, Justin Yates, how about you?
Hey everybody, my name is Justin. I am new to this group. I never even heard of this group until a couple weeks ago when Philbert was like, "Hey, check out this group," and I was like, "Hey, this is a really cool idea." And he's like, "We're playing Metal Gear Solid this month," and I was like, "What? I love that game." So I'm happy to be here. I'm a musician. I play all types of weird games from Famicom to The Last of Us. So I'm happy to be here. And yeah, I've played Metal Gear Solid many times in my life. So this is a game I really, really enjoy and glad to be a part of the conversation.
All right, Shadow.
Well, I've been here before. I've been. Let's see. I started playing this game for the first time in 2022. My first experience with Snake was probably in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. So it was kind of fun to see this game being replayed, and what I think was pretty fun to see is like some community members even streamed this game too. So that was pretty fun to see different perspective while playing the game myself.
All right, and then finally we have Game Dave joining us for the first time.
I made it. I did it. I'm here. Metal Gear Solid, yes. So Metal Gear Solid, I had with my original PlayStation, and I had I think it was like a Blockbuster copy because our Blockbuster went out pretty early. So I kind of, swiped what I could of game stuff back then. And the first disc had a huge gouge in it, which I did not know until we were already home. And it was one of those like, no returns, no reasons, defects, doesn't matter. You cannot return this. And it would freeze shortly after, I guess, well, how would I, spoilers, shortly after the first cardiac event that happens. And when you have to, when you're stuck and you have to shoot the waves of guys coming in, and it would just freeze there. And you could move, but you couldn't shoot, and the disc, it would just not. I still have that copy. I should get that out and see if that next stream. I should
next stream. We gotta get to the knocked out guy.
And I definitely want to talk about something with the music of Metal Gear Solid at some point. But yes, thanks for inviting me on. I'm glad I finally found some time to hop on.
Yeah, I appreciate you making it for sure. So yeah, we've all talked a little bit, so feel free to chime in more. But yeah, I was first got my experience with Metal Gear because of my older brothers picked it up at pretty early on. So I watched them play it through first before I actually even touched it. But then I played it way back in the day. Ended up picking up on GameCube, the Twin Snakes remake version, and played that quite extensively back then. But I don't know if this was the same for the rest of you, but the probably one of the biggest memories I have of Metal Gear Solid is that first like level or two, whatever you want to call it, like the first level and the elevator when you go up. There was a demo of that, I swear, in every PS1 demo disc that existed.
It felt like that.
Every friend's house I went over to, especially back then when half the time, half the games they owned were just demo discs because we're kids and broke. Everyone was just like, you got to check this game out. And it was them just playing that demo part of that game. So that was probably actually my first experience with it. And look at that.
There it is.
$200,000 value of games.
Once a big
Pizza Hut too.
Fantastic. Yep.
Oh, that is awesome. But it quickly, the first game is one of those games that just, I have so many memories cemented from it. It takes me back to that like late 90s era.
Was that your first Metal Gear game?
Yes, it would have been my first. And then I became a fan of the series. I remember playing 2 pretty early on. Again, my brother owned it. At that point, my brother was in his like early 20s. So he came back for Christmas. Brought his PS2 like when it was still like new. I remember playing through a ton of Metal Gear Solid 2. But yeah, not to go on too much of a tangent, but I love the first 3. I appreciate 4. I absolutely hate 5. And 5's like one of those games where I think it's a great game. I just don't like as a Metal Gear game. If it was a different game, different theme, I'd probably be more on board with it.
I will say that 5 has the best gameplay, but the biggest flaw of 5 is it's Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yep. So if there is anyone in chat who's not aware, essentially we'll be going over kind of the Metal Gear, the mechanics, the plot. If this is brand new to you somehow, essentially the premise is you're playing a character named Solid Snake, kind of forced out of retirement to stop some terrorists who took over essentially like a secret military base. They have a couple big hostages and are threatening to launch a nuclear missile. They're being sent in with the objective to rescue these hostages and find out if they have the potential to actually launch a nuke.
With an anime robot.
With an anime robot. Just like one of his Japanese animes.
Yes.
So obviously if people, it should be or it's not playing. I need to make sure it's playing. There you go. When it comes to Metal Gear, the first thing I think a lot of people pick up when you first play the game is, especially for the time, it's not like many other games that ever came out. It is, we're probably going to say this word many times, is very cinematic. The way the credits roll, and the way like credits not only the character but the voice actor, and you start the game essentially just trying to sneak into the base. Do any of you kind of recall the first time you played this game, and did any of that stick out to you? Did you think it was cool, or was it just like, oh, we're like, skip all this, I gotta get to the action?
I'll chime in here. I'll try to keep this brief, but I'll give you my little bit of introduction here as well too. When I stated before that I love this game, I really did mean it. And here's like a little bit of a collection I busted out for all you guys here, because I don't know why do I own like 4 copies of this game? I don't understand, but like I keep buying it over and over because this game is amazing. But to answer your question, Filbert, like I really do enjoy this game. I really do. Like, I really enjoy this game, dude. I don't know if you know this, but I really like this game, guys. I like it. Okay. No, but playing that first game, it shocked the hell out of me when I played it. And I was fully blown away. And just that intro scene, like you talked about, Filbert, was so impactful because it was something completely different. I thought the storyline was like so gripping, and I just got sucked into it. And this is super embarrassing, but I wanted to show you guys this. I have a tips and tricks from December 1998 where I drew what looks to be like either ICP something or something on my link here. Okay, it looks horrible. But I read this magazine, I can't even tell you how many different times, because I would get stuck in that first bit of the game so many times that it drove me insane. But I was so impressed by just being able to move the character, how you were able to do it. And still to this day, I actually refer back to this magazine because it has a section on Metal Gear that right now I can't find, which is hilarious. But yeah, that first scene was so cinematic and so impactful that I still think to this day, there's probably only like a small handful of games that like grip me as hard as that first game did. The music hidden, the characters hidden, it was awesome. It's really hard to describe, but when you play it, it's I still think it holds up just on a whole different level and still holds up to this day.
I agree. You might say the control is solid. Yeah, there's something about the way that Metal Gear Solid. Now, I have not. So my two buddies were super into all the Metal Gear games. They were, Kojima people. And I really only played Metal Gear Solid, a little bit of the NES game, but I saw them play a lot of Snake Eater because that was one of my friends. That was his favorite, was Snake Eater. And then my buddy Steve really liked 4 with our old man, and I just watched him play it. And I was like, why is he so old? Not picking up on, the story's totally not convoluted and wild and crazy of everything that goes on with anything Kojima does. But yeah, for me, it was that same thing, because that was not a typical genre that I would play. But then when I played Metal Gear Solid, I was like, man, I want to keep playing this. So I kept replaying up until my game would glitch out. So really, that first chunk of the game is super like burned into my brain. And then, as some of you know, VR missions I loved because of the controls and just the way that the mechanics of the game works. I loved VR missions, which I streamed as well because it's just so good. But yeah, the control is something that's just right. It did not age poorly. It's easy to go back to, I feel like.
It's funny to see the GameCube version of it, how it's polished in every way, yet those mechanics are still. And some people, I don't know, they feel. I think Shadow was saying, 5 plays very, very well, and to me, I can't get out of how that first game played. And maybe it is that same thing that you're saying, Dave, where you just played it so much. Like I played that demo from Pizza Hut so many times that everything is just. It's I don't know. It's really hard to look at the other games and think that it's quote better. It just seemed like everything was just hit right out of the park from the first 5 seconds of the game.
You're like, this is how it's supposed to play. They should play like this.
Yeah, I was watching someone play just recently, like after I beat it, and they're playing the PS1 version, and someone in chat brought up like the newer games, and they're just like, it's on Metal Gear's game if I just can't aim and shoot. Not do first person, but just like, you just hold the button to draw the gun and shoot. And I found that interesting too, because I played a decent amount of the first game. I probably went through it like twice. I watched my brothers play it multiple times, but I really got into Metal Gear. Like the first game made me a fan, but what really got me into it was the second one. So that's why even playing like Twin Snakes, because a lot of people kind of, even those are like the black sheep when it comes to controls, because they are that like PlayStation 2 clunk in a way, especially like when you go first person, you have to like hold the gun out, and then like if you don't want to shoot, you have to like push another button and put it away, and like half the time you're accidentally shooting people. But it's like, for me, that kind of became like my baseline when it came to the control scheme. Like when I play the PS1 version, it always just feels weird to me, just like shooting without like going first person mode.
Is there much difference between the Twin Snakes and the original in terms of controls?
Yes, in the fact that there's the entire option to basically go in that same first person mode that you can do in Metal Gear 2. Other than that, it's just a really well polished version of the first one.
Yeah.
Unless I'm forgetting something.
There's a few other things that are more minor, but Twin Snakes is just the first game built in the engine of the second game. So like it adds like the first person adds like the grabbing, hanging. Especially in the first game, there's really only a couple spots you can even hang. I know there's other few like minor things like that where
I think you can roll.
Yeah, the
That's another
rolling
one too,
yeah.
right? Yeah. I know I'll show my age here, but I think it's important to like, point out the old man thing, which is like trying to put yourself in the shoes of when this game came out, which is hard to do. But most of you guys are really into retro games, so you'll know the comparison. But it's hard to make people understand how amazing this game was unless you spend time playing all the other garbage games that were out. And don't get me wrong, like Siphon Filter has its place, and all these,
I was thinking
some
of
of these
Siphon
other
Filter
games.
as soon as you said that.
Some of these other games have value to them. Don't get me wrong. So when I say garbage, I mean that, just in a joking way. But the game was on a completely different level, not only for Kojima in comparison to the two games prior, but compared to every other game that even like had a whiff of the same genre. Dude, it was completely in its own like field, and totally.
So talking about that, so Blue, I know. So this was your first time playing it, and you actually played the PlayStation 1 version. How did you feel about essentially playing this game for the first time in 2026?
I think it held up like surprisingly well, and I did catch a couple of your streams where you playing Twin Snakes, and the graphical fidelity difference was fairly striking, but it wasn't to the point where like, oh, these are like completely different games. Like I'm like, oh yeah, they kind of just threw more memory at it, and all the textures went from, like 768 to 2048 or whatever. So it held up surprisingly well. I struggled probably 3/4 of the game with the controls though. Trying to shoot people in that game was like pulling teeth for me, and like 90% of the time I just ran away or hid. It was like,
because that's what they wanted you to do,
right? And so how much of that was planned to be like, we want, we're going to make, having to shoot, you have to kind of, it demands a level of dexterity to be able to like aim properly, and the number of times that I laid down by accident and I'm just like, well, I'm on the floor now, unable to do anything.
I will admit, I have many moments of accidental laydowns. Okay, I'll give you that. That's true. That is true.
Listen, they are ahead of their time, because drop shot in Call of Duty, I hear, is one of the main mechanics. Is you just go prone in the middle of a firefight. So Kojima predicted that too.
I'm sensing a theme here, since me and Blue ain't so familiar with the game. Like we haven't played it like early in our childhood or teens. I looked it up, and the first time I played Metal Gear Solid, any of them, was free, and that was in 2013, and I was already 19 by then. So I had a lot of games under my belt, and I think those controls are so hard to get in my tiny European brain, so it's a struggle for me, and I'm laying down all the time. And when I think of Metal Gear Solid and compare it to another game, it's Splinter Cell. And what I'm missing about this game is a tutorial like the first Splinter game. Like, I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing when I'm starting to play this. How did I do this again? Oh, I'm just laying down now. Where am I going now? Like, I
It
had
does
some
kind of throw you
struggles.
in. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember I started the first level, and I realized that I kind of didn't know a lot of the controls because it doesn't really tutorialize anything directly. So I definitely spent a fair amount of time in that first elevator, sub basement room, just beating people up and being like, at what point did they stop getting up? And I died like 3 or 4 times, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just like missing something. So I went back to the main menu, and there was like the VR tutorial section that was like I don't know if it was still in another menu or if it was just another main menu option. But I went through that, and that kind of actually teaches you like legit controls and everything. So kudos for actually having a tutorial, even if it isn't like in the actual game itself. But
So Philbert, let me know if I missed it out. Does Twin Snakes have that option, that tutorial?
No, so Twin Snakes, they plan to do VR missions, but they ran out of time. I it's one of the things that I, as a kid, it really bothered me. It bothers me less, but I still don't like it in the games. They try and do send the tutorial with the codex calls, and a lot of times it's just they're trying to do it like, I think, immersive, but it never works for me. Where the
That's
colonel
where
will be
you
like,
learn that women have more hiding spots.
yeah,
than men.
yes. And where are those spots, Dave? Can you pull up?
I have no idea. Cheeks, cheekbones. I don't know.
But he'll be like, push the crouch button or something. And as a kid, I always really hated that. And there's always that weird terminology like, this is a sneaking mission, and it's just like, that doesn't sound very like military to me.
Yeah, and then it says press the action button, and my brain just straight goes to the A button, but it's like X or Y, I don't remember which. That is also kind of weird.
So it does cover, I know, some of the stuff in the codex, but definitely not a lot of the mechanics. And Twin Snakes, we're talking about like a little bit of the differences. A big thing Twin Snakes adds is the tranquilizer gun. So you can, in the original game, for the most part, you just knock people out or you just kill them, and then they'll eventually like respawn. In Twin Snakes, you can like knock people out and they'll be unconscious for a fairly extended amount of time. And you can like hold people up as well, make them put their hands up and shake their booty at you. So I do think that also makes Twin Snakes in some ways quite a bit easier, especially if you're new. Because Blue, if I remember right, you told me you're trying to go like somewhat peaceful at the beginning, just trying to knock people out, and then you're like, this is impossible.
it's too much. Yeah.
Because I played
Snap those necks.
No, you're a chiropractor.
Yeah, that's clearly it was an alignment that just left them.
Well, look, you never
actually, it's
go
just AI
okay,
chiropractor.
You just go from that to being an acupuncturist, okay? You never really.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Snake's so good at his job, they just become I'm just at peace. I just don't want, my neck feels so much better.
I'm looking through all the game cases right now, and most of the games do have instructions in there, which actually, a funny side note is that on the back of the PlayStation 2 re-release, Meryl's code isn't on the back.
Oh,
So if you got that, you were screwed. But I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, the whole point of them not telling you something was his way of just being like, figure it out. Like, you're supposed to act stealth-like. We want you to get in there and get, like, what would you do? We don't want to hold your hand completely through it. And I think that's why some of those the chief's directions are a little clunky, where he's just like, maybe try something like this, but he doesn't really give you exact directions. It's just kind of like a general sort of thing. And that kind of gets you into that mode, because most of you guys know the more that you kind of play pretend, the more that you will actually do better in this game. You know what I'm saying? The more that you really start to act stealthy is really when you're like, oh wait, I get how this game mechanic works. Like I can actually fun with this and be a silly goose. And they just press that even more as the games go on. You know what I mean? You can really have a lot of fun with it.
Yep. Yeah, I always feel like I don't know if this is how you guys always played this game back in the day, but this goes for I think essentially all the Metal Gear Solid games. Like the first like third, like until you do like the first like 2 or 3 boss fights in this game, I especially as a kid, I was always goofing around, like trying to see how many soldiers I could take out, or intentionally like getting caught and trying to evade and hide, and would almost treat a lot more as a sandbox during that like first like quarter third of the game.
Dude, the amount of times I tried to beat the game on just being in a box alone, I can't even count.
Well, did you ever? Do we have
No, but
a box win?
No, but I don't know if you guys know this. You probably do, or may have seen this before, but I'll show you this from this amazing Tips and Tricks magazine that I drooled over for 15 years. When I saw this, because I didn't know that this was possible, there's a ranking system in this game. You guys have ever seen this before?
Oh, yep.
How you
yeah,
beat
the
the game.
names, the code names. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't know this. And that's what I think when I was younger, I was like, I wonder if there's like a hidden one if I beat the whole thing in the box and just tried for forever and just could only get so far because I have to open a door and you can't do that. So, it never worked out. But I didn't stop me from trying over and over and over again.
And we want to welcome in Miss Moon. How are you doing, Miss Moon?
Colonel, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
I finally made it.
No, welcome. Now we're still kind of talking about like the intro and our early thoughts, a lot of the mechanics of the game. I suppose before we talk about kind of the first boss, or better yet, Dave's ending location, if you want to share kind of your kind of brief history about this game, Miss Moon, like when you first played it, just your overall thoughts about the series in general.
Oh yeah, sure. It started for me with my oldest brother. He played it first at launch. Around that time, when I was really little, I would more often watch my 2 older brothers playing, and I just sit there and watch along. But once they had already beaten the game and been done with it, then that's when I would usually take over and kind of spend time playing it for myself. So MGS was definitely one of those unique series that that just you didn't see a lot of that at the time. So it was something that stood out to you. And for me, it wasn't really until Sons of Liberty where it kind of clicked for me the most. That will always be my most favorite title in the whole series. But playing MGS1 is what started it for me.
And did anyone here actually play the NES, or I forget the other versions of the original Metal Gear? Because I know I did, but I think it was after Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, I didn't touch them until way after. It was just little pieces of yeah.
I played these ones, and I've played this one so much that I threw this out of anger when I was younger. You can see it's like bent in the top, which is hilarious. But I remember playing these when I was really, really young, and I could never figure out what to do.
Yeah.
It never clicked with me just because I was like so young. And now it's funny going back now, and I just laugh at myself because it's like, oh no, I totally get the dynamic. But I think it's actually worth asking you guys, since we're talking about like when you were introduced to this, how many of you guys have actually played Police Knots?
I have never played it.
Never.
I haven't either.
Nope.
What about you, Dave?
Nope. Now Steve loved Police Knots, but I did not play it.
Do you guys do yourself a favor and find a way to play the game, because you, as a Metal Gear Solid fan, will just giggle to yourself so much. The amount of video things that were stolen from that game for the first Metal Gear Solid is just a delightful treat. But also, Meryl is in that game, as is Fox.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, I have never really known anything about it other than it was in previous Kojima game. I
It's
always
definitely worth playing if you're a fan of Snatcher's gameplay, or if you just like the lore of Kojima's games and you want to play something that's a little bit more enticing than this original horrible game, then I would strongly recommend checking it out.
Yeah, there's like a Metal Gear in Snatcher, right? Like a little miniature Metal Gear or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe so.
So when it comes to Metal Gear, pretty early into the game, you come across the first hostage that you're trying to rescue, the DARPA chief. And this is the first time you kind of start to learn that there's more going on in the story than what you're initially told. He's kind of letting you know it sounds like the terrorists might be able to launch this bomb, and then he seems to mysteriously die from a random heart attack. And Snake is like keen enough to know there's more going on. He quickly is like questioning the colonel that he's not feeding him all the information. It's also where you come across Meryl, which is, you know, kind of weird that the colonel's daughter just also happens to be in this base. But is there, I guess, anything you want to talk about this scene specifically with Dave, just since this was the area your game used to freeze back in the day?
I was it freaked me out. I was probably, I'm trying to think, because the original Metal Gear was what, 98?
Yeah.
98. And I definitely would not have played it, I mean, if I was getting an old rental copy. So I was probably 13 when I played Metal Gear Solid. And even then, like that, it freaked me out. Like anytime somebody was like having some weird spasm in Metal Gear Solid, it would like freak me out, just because like the rough graphics combined with just the weird shaking and, you know, them just doing their best with what they could, or later on when you find the when Ninja shows up and takes the hand of Revolver, I was like, ugh, this looks horrible, and yet I'm disturbed. I'm a little disturbed by this. This is throwing me off. But yeah, that was not until later that I really got into, because my other friend had Metal Gear Solid, and then I didn't get my own like truly working copy until I got the PS2 Essential Collection, I think is what it's called. Yep. Is that what it is? Yeah. They had the 3 in it. But yeah, no, I would replay the game from there to the point where it would glitch out and freeze as we were escaping together after his supposed heart attack. But it was clear that it was not a cardiac event. It was just too convenient and weird. But I always remember being mad because I really liked that guy's character, and his voice acting was, I think, some of the best voice acting in the game. And I'm like, oh man, great, this character is gone. This stinks.
Did you at least get to witness the scene where Snake stared at Meryl's butt, or did it freeze before that?
You mean her wiggle? That wiggle?
A little wiggle? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. Gosh, I'll tell you, I definitely missed some things, even at 13. Man, I was clearly too innocent, but there's so many.
It'd be fun. It would be fun to watch you do a replay on that first game and do a save and then transfer the save to a working disc. Well, obviously not, but it's like you have to start a run on the legendary corrupt
Absolutely,
game.
That's gonna have to be a stream. I gotta play my busted first disc of Metal Gear Solid on stream to the point that it breaks. It actually would be probably the perfect amount for a stream length. I feel like that point in the game is probably would line up. Yeah, it's crazy. The amount of innuendo and Snake just hitting on everybody it's so comical.
Yeah, he's a horn dog.
It's not even like, but also they give it back to him too. It's like, oh, well, you know, maybe we can do a strip search on me when we're done with this mission. It's like, what? It's like, all right, guys, let's deal with this nuclear threat. Clink.
You guys know about the mailing cheat and the Meryl cheat, right? That are both in that same vein. Are you guys familiar with those?
I know
Zero.
Mailing, if you keep calling her, she'll like blush and stick her tongue out. Like if you just basically harass her.
Yeah, you basically you try to like hit on her a whole bunch of times and she tries to like playfully be a little coy with you. But the other one that some people may or may not know is that, and to Blue's comment about the graphics, which it's really funny playing like the Twin Snakes. I have this love for the old polygons and the crude nature of that first game,
The smooth
but
faces.
it's something about it is so charming, and it's all nostalgia. It has to be. But there's a cheat in the game where if you stare at Meryl's polygons for a number of seconds, she'll start to get red and she'll start asking you, like, Snake, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And if you keep staring at her, she'll get more red and she'll keep like spamming these commands at you, basically saying, like, please stop it. We have something to do. What are you doing? Leave me alone. Which is pretty sure it's a callback to Police Knots, because in that game you can do it with a flight attendant and it gets so bad that she'll stop talking to you and threaten to kick you off the plane. This is like Kojima's sense of humor just splattered across the game.
Yeah.
I know, talking about the DARPA chief too, I remember, so much like I was saying, I had a lot of my early experiences, like Miss Moon, watching my older brothers play this. And I, of course, I would have been probably 9 at the time, 9 or 10. Metal Gear Solid Rex. I thought, Rex dinosaur, it kind of looks like a T-Rex. That's awesome. It just makes it even cooler to like 9-10-year-old me. And the DARPA chief, I was always excited when I would watch my brother start a new playthrough, because you would get, just, it was only a couple seconds, but you'd be able to see Metal Gear a few times. And it's really only see Metal Gear a couple times through like those scenes until the very end of the game. So I always was so giddy where I'm like, oh, but I get to see it. Like back in the day, it's just like I would wish you could like pause or record, because I was just like, it does kind of look like a T-Rex or something.
To that point that Dave mentioned earlier, how the game kind of hooks you and wants you to keep playing more. It has that, it's the way the dialogue is written that it grips you into the story. But I mentioned The Last of Us earlier when we were doing our introductions, and it just made me think about that scene. And I don't know about you guys. I know some of the games that you guys are into, but I don't know all the games that you're into. And I don't know about you guys, but there's only a few amount of games, including The Last of Us, that emotionally hit me on a level that I was like, whoa, I really connect with this. And I remember when I was playing this game around 13 years old, around that time, I remember when the DARPA chief had his heart attack, being like emotionally invested in the story. And I was like, what is happening? And like that, I think, was the first time and solidified in my mind why I thought this was one of the best games like ever made, because I felt something for the characters. And it's funny because well, depending on how much you screw around, that's gotta be 22 minutes into that game. And to feel that like emotional pull that quickly in a game for a character that really only has, I mean, how much dialogue? He's got like a couple monologues inside that cell, and that's it. And to have that impact at such a young age, it shows like how amazing that writing is, just right out of the gate. You know what I'm saying?
And for me, I think, especially like watching my brothers play it, is like essentially almost an audience member. Like I was almost watching a movie. The game is one of the first games that gave me that truly like cinematic movie feel, where the first like third of the game, there's so much buildup, and you're like sneaking into this base, and like my mind was always this. I was engrossed because of like almost the adventure aspect it brings of discovering the bosses, the weapons you get, and the plot unfold. And then there's that like point of no return, like after Snake kind of gets like captured and the torture scene, and it always just the climax for this game. If I would watch like my brothers play it or they started to play it, it's like once you got to like a certain point, it's like I always had the urge to see the game get finished because it would be like pausing a movie, like a 2.5 hour movie, like 2 hours in. It's just like, no, we just have to see this through for how the plot kind of plays out. And I don't recall any other games capturing that at the time, because any other game that was very like immersive to me, like Final Fantasy VI maybe before this, even something like Final Fantasy VII, they were so long, they just don't have a capture like this game, especially back in the day, you could beat in 1 or 2 sittings as a kid or a teen, no problem.
This is like a James Bond film for the most part. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like action
Mhm.
espionage sort of something compared to, even though like Final Fantasy is a great example of something that's got such a meaty story and is emotionally driven and this character development, but it's also 40 plus hours just batting you in the head. And unless you're really into turn based, it's not going to hook people. Really funny you say that though, Philbert, about it having such like, I'm seeing it from the audience point of view and a cinematic experience. I can't remember where I heard it, but again, I'm showing my age. And I remember at one point in time reading something where they asked Kojima, like, will you make this into a movie? And his response was, my game is a movie. What are you talking about? And like I think that was like one of the motivating factors to have. I think one of the unlockables in the first game is just to have the cinema mode, is to put it all together, because he knew right off the bat, he's like, this is a film, like this is what the story is, more than it is a game. That's the thing that's going to resonate with people more than anything, which I think you could probably disagree with because the gameplay still holds up, but that cinematic thing is just, it's just amazing.
Oh yeah, definitely when a film buff wants to make video games, like this is the type of experience you get. So to talk about the game a little bit further, so our first boss fight, when you fight Ocelot, what is everyone's kind of general thoughts about the first boss fight in this game? Because the bosses in this game, Foxhound and everything, I think is one of the big staples, especially for this game. I was always engrossed thinking like a lot of the boss characters in Foxhound itself was such a cool unit. And I was like one of those kids where I was just like, I wish Snake like doesn't kill them, like capture them, because like all these bosses are so cool and interesting to me. But does anyone want to talk about Ocelot and the first boss fight in the game?
I do remember my first playthrough back in 22. I did have some rough going with the Ocelot for the first time, but now I feel like I had the shooting mechanic a bit better under control this time, so it was kind of fine. And I hear that the Twin Snakes makes that boss fight really easy compared to the original. So I don't know if that statement is true or not, but
How did you
100%. 100%.
yeah.
how did you fare, Blue, in the Ocelot fight?
I ran out of ammo multiple times on that fight. I did not have the aiming and firing mechanics down by that point. So it's definitely a skill check at that. It's to be like, even if you stealth the entire time up until this point, you got to figure out how to shoot stuff at this point. But I thought it was interesting that they definitely threw in mechanics that were like, Ocelot will just run away from you if you get close, so you have to be able to hit him at a distance too. You can't just like run up, like there's not like an easy sort of just cheese strat, at least not by default, with just going in there with a gun. So yeah, it took me a couple of tries, but I did get through it. I will say that in general, the bosses in this game for me got more and more frustrating as the game went on. So like in the hierarchy of being annoyed, this is like the bottom.
A funny thing you should mention ammo. Thanks to Filbert that mentioned that if you beat the game, you get a new game plus. So I used the bandana whole game and had all the ammos. So that made it more easier for me.
Yeah, I know in the GameCube version. So I guess I played and beat the PS1 version probably like 5 years ago. So I forget and I conflate a lot between the Twin Snakes version and the PS1 version. But I know I want to say in all the boss fights in the Twin Snakes version, the game just gives you more ammo. Like if you fully run out, it just spawns more. So I'm assuming that didn't happen for you, Blue. You just were just out of bullets.
It spawned like a couple ammo boxes at the start, but I went through all of that and I don't think it respawned them again. So yeah. There was definitely a point, I think it happened twice, where I was like, all right, I have missed all of my shots. We are still about halfway through this boss. I don't know how we're gonna get the other half of that health bar down because I can't get close to him. He
You just take him
away.
with you. You just run in the wires.
When I did the boss fight, I don't know how, I can't remember exactly how I did it. I guess it was just a slip of the hand, but I accidentally dropped a grenade and immediately just blew everybody in the room up.
Oh, whoops.
I guess that's
But
one way to do it.
yeah, one way to do it, destroy all the evidence. Let's just get it out the way. But I can understand Blue's feelings on the boss battles becoming increasingly more frustrating because I haven't played MGS in a while, so I kind of forgot how janky the controls can be. It's like the aim isn't always directly on the enemy the way it should be. It's like Snake is always jittery in some kind of way, and it's hard to get him still. But
Hey, you try to save the world and keep your hands steady, okay? See how good you'll do, Miss Moon.
I need those pills.
Yeah, the muscle relaxer
Yeah.
pills.
Taking Valium the whole time and smoking cigarettes while trying to save the world.
Yes, the only way I can succeed this mission. But no, yeah, the controls are a little janky from what I remember, but the set pieces are fun. But there were a couple of fights later on that I did find really annoying. But we'll get to that. The Hein fight, I can't stand that one. But yeah, Ocelot was a good introduction. That was a good one.
And during this fight is when we are introduced to our ninja, which again, 9-10-year-old Filbert, coolest shit ever. It's like we have essentially robot mechs that look like dinosaurs and now cyber ninjas. I remember too thinking the scene was just always just like a little bit bizarre how he cuts off his hand, because I'm so used to watching a game like this where the bad guy just is killed or defeated. So seeing Ocelot just get his arm cut off and then still like take off and survive, that's just like one of those little things that just stuck out to me. It's just
also looks really weird.
well, the PS1 version, like it's like full like samurai movie, like blood spitting out.
The blood looks more like steam, like red steam coming.
Yeah, Ocelot for me, I thought was, I'm still to this day hard to find a better group of bad guys. And I'll gush about all of them in a number of different ways. And like Filbert, like you said, like some of them you didn't want to see die, and there's definitely some of them that you didn't want to. But Ocelot's monologues, his creepy voice, the game dynamics that you had to play to be able to learn how to kind of outsmart him. You guys aren't the only ones that had trouble with that. I can't count the amount of times I would just run into those stupid red lasers or shoot something and just completely blow the thing up just over and over and over again. But I think if, the order in which the enemies come out, I think just progressively get better and better and better. And Ocelot, as you see throughout, a lot of Metal Gear story, is quite a badass to say the least. One or no hands, or
But yeah, after you defeat Ocelot, of course, Armsec President also has a heart attack. You really start to kind of question what's going on in the story, knowing there's fully more going on. They're claiming they can launch the nukes. At this time, you're told Meryl has the PAL key to disable the launch system. And not very long after the first boss fight, you get to the second boss fight, which is fighting Raven in the M1 tank. This I want to say is probably one of the more annoying fights to me, at least on the Twin Snakes when I played it. But one thing I will say about most of these boss fights is it, for the type of game, I'm looking back after replaying it again just recently, it's really, they did a really good job about having each boss fight be very different. So many action games, so many shooter games just come down to like shoot the bad guy, and all right, they have like a weak point you have to hit. But almost every boss fight in this game is essentially you're doing some completely different mechanic, or you need to go about it a completely different way. It's just not shoot the person. But how does everyone feel about the fighting the M1 battle tank in a tiny ass courtyard?
Run over constantly. I'm like, am I crouching? Oh no, I got ran over again.
was one of the first times I ever had an enemy laugh at me while he was running me over with a tank, where I'm just like, wait, like what kind of cruel game is this? You know what I'm saying?
Having watched you make the attempt on the boss, and you did actually beat it, I think this fight might have actually been easier on the original than it was on Twin Snakes. Because the game does a lot of hand-holding to serve that grenade into the cupola and in the first game, and it seemed like you had to aim a lot more precisely in Twin Snakes to actually get it to do the shindig. So I think I got out a little easier on that one. On
And
Twin Snakes.
I have a playthrough of Twin Snakes going right now, and something I just never realized. It's like I didn't realize you can just run up and put mines under the tank and basically take out its treads. Because I always knew as a kid you could do the shaft grenade, and it worked like the first time, where it would screw him up and he couldn't. But then it was like less effective every time after that. But yeah, when I was going through on Twin Snakes, I was having a more trouble trying to take this boss out for sure.
That's another one of those things where it's like you can kill the boss a bunch of different ways, and you'll be rewarded for how you want to go about doing it. You know what I mean? So you could take out his tread. You could jump up there, climb on top of the tank, and wait until somebody comes out and shoot him. Like you can do things multiple different ways and be rewarded. And that type of freedom is at the time was just mind blowing. I think we take that for granted in these days where everything is a little bit more open ended, and you know what I mean? You have so many more choices. And a lot of games back then were so linear. At the time, it was just like, what? I don't have to use just this gun. I can use a chaff grenade. I can use a stun grenade. I can throw C4 on the top and see what happens. You know what I mean? Just having that ability to go crazy with it is that's just awesome.
Yeah, I think that's why I liked the game so much. And just like Philbert was saying too, where it had that sandboxy kind of feel where you could kind of try different things. And I think that's why even for my busted copy, it had replayability, because like, oh yeah, let me start over again to get back to this glitch and try something different, play it a different way, which was kind of cool before I was able to actually go through the whole game.
Another scene I want to talk about, it always creeped me out as a kid too, was after you defeat the tank, you're before you get to Otacon, you get to that hallway where Gray Fox goes through and just slices up all the soldiers, and probably the most gruesome scene in the game. It's like the only spot where like corpses stay there the entire game, and there's blood all over. And again, that's just another one of those scenes that just stuck out to me. Goes almost like straight horror there for a little bit, and I was just wondering what kind of anyone's thoughts are on that scene, or if you remember the first time you saw it or encountered it.
I kind of want to backtrack to the boss.
Oh yeah, go.
I had such a hard time with that. I even thought, like, was replaying this a good idea? Why did I do this? Like, it's something about that boss fight that isn't so clear. I ended up like putting the banana on and just throwing grenades and hoping for a hole in one. Eventually, I managed to beat it, and the rest of the game went somewhat decent after that. But that was my biggest roadblock in the game.
Was it throwing the grenade, Shadow, or was it like stepping on the mines that were killing you constantly?
The mines I just picked up, for me, it was. It's the camera guns at the top, and
Oh
the
yeah,
tank
those are.
itself running me over, and it was the controls that got me. It was so many elements mixed in, so I just struggle with so many things I couldn't really get out of that failure loop. So, but I managed to do it, and even struggling so much. We haven't mentioned which difficulty we played on, but I played on very easy and even struggle like that. You kind of think like, should I return my gamer card now?
Yeah, I went through on hard. Usually my rule of thumb with games is I'll do one difficulty above normal. But
Yeah.
I really like when I play games, I almost always want like that challenge aspect is generally important to me.
Yeah, I'm a normal guy for the most part, but for this control scheme and not just vibing with it, I thought very easy, and I saw my last playthrough was also on very easy, so I'm not the best gamer for Metal Gear Solid, but I guess I'm all right in other games, maybe.
I think because that game has such a replayability, go back and play it again. And since it has so many different versions, try it on Switch or try it on the PS2 or the Twin Snakes or something like that. Because once you get your bearings there, the game rewards you, like you said, with the bandana, with the stealth camouflage. Like it wants you to play again. It also challenges you with the rankings. So you're gonna get it down. And to Dave's point, like this stuff is gonna get burned in your head to the point that you're just going to start smashing it, where you're gonna be like, I want this to be a challenge. And it does become a challenge because once you start turning off your radar, it's just like, dude, this is a whole different type of beast of a game once you keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
Well,
I see your point, but I counter you with a massive backlog.
I think this is the era too of a lot of the skill level of this game is just knowing exploits, like built-in exploits of the game. Like again, watching that tank battle, like I've totally forgot you could put mines and take out the treads. And it's like a lot of boss fights or aspects of this game, and I think games of this era get so much easier if you just know one or two key ways to approach a fight. So sometimes when you're going in blind or it's been a really long time and you forgot some of that stuff, it's like playing like the first Zelda. There's a few things I have burned in my memory on that game, but if you don't know them, and Dave can probably contest this, playing it, beating it recently, there's things you just are not aware about that weren't ingrained into you. That game's like 5 times harder than it otherwise would be.
Did anybody else blow up the president when they were fighting Ocelot, or is it just me?
Well, Miss
Sounds like
Moon did the
Yeah.
she pulled out the grenade. She didn't want
Right, you blew up
to-
everybody. Yeah.
I mean, I had to on purpose when I'm left with no other means of damaging
Lack of
the
ammo, no
loss.
choice.
So yeah, yeah, it was like I walk willingly to my demise.
Mine's just slipped out of my hand by accident.
That's a really good point, Filbert, though, because like we all saw with Dave, if you guys watched his thing, if he didn't know which bushes to burn, it was like we were all 11 years old again, spending literally 8 hours burning every single bush and crazy. And but once you learn that, it changes everything. I've seen people speed run this game where literally they'll master the sound mechanics, where they'll just be running through a level, knock on a wall here, run over here, and just go. And they know exactly where everyone is going to move, where everyone is going to basically react to things. So you can definitely exploit it. There's no doubt. The AI is smart and silly and does a lot of fun in this game, but it also is very limiting. That's one of the things that it shows. It shows its age in comparison to. It could be redundant, but say something like The Last of Us, where their AI is a little bit more smart, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean. We'll track after you kind of thing.
So what's everyone? I don't think we've even talked about them yet. What's everyone's thoughts on our favorite anime convention nerd, Otacon?
We love Otacon in this house. He's a special character. I think just briefly, I think he's a good dynamic for Snake's character because I think they balance each other out really well because they seem like almost complete opposites in a way. And on the surface, you think, how could these two like actually, aside from getting along for the mission's sake, but beyond that, like, with the ending, for example, you don't think that those two would have anything in common, but somehow it works. You kind of see it develop over time during the mission, and I actually like that aspect about Metal Gear Solid because you really didn't see a lot of friendships like that in stories, well, especially in video games, quite yet, or not as much.
Yeah, definitely, especially with like voice acting involved. It definitely gives like the jock has befriended the nerd, like in a movie trope.
Mhm.
Yeah, and speaking of voice acting, I think Otagon's voice acting is like one of the best in the game. He really sells that character so believable.
For me, I've seen it before I played this game, so I remember watching like the first like GoldenEye 007, and I always thought of him of what was his name, Boris in GoldenEye. If any of you have seen that James Bond movie,
The
I
Russian
am
hacker.
invincible.
Yeah.
I always, especially in the first game, would equate those two a lot. But yeah, I was always very fond of Otacon as well, thinking, I'm sure like a lot of us, just the idea of like this like super smart like guy who can like hack any computer and design all these systems, like that level of intelligence was always there's something alluring about that. So it was always cool to see his character stay alive and be helpful to Snake.
Yeah. And I think Otagon is emblematic of a lot of the characters in this game in that they are like almost caricatures of or trope, like maybe not trope originators, but they are almost stereotypical to parody level. Like even Snake himself is like almost a caricature of like that hard-boiled soldier of fortune.
Yeah.
Meryl is the rookie with something to prove. Like even your commanding officer is a caricature of like the mysterious authority figure that never tells you the full story. But so I think that's on purpose. Again, I think it all kind of plays into the sort of action movie cinematic feel that they were trying to go for. So I feel like all of those characters are like they're well written and they're written as caricatures on purpose. So
Yeah, kind of like Justin was saying, and how it helps you, like you identify with them so quickly. In that first part of the game, you already kind of know who they are. Like Justin kind of, was hitting on that earlier.
right.
And yeah, I think being those caricatures helps that for the player, so they don't have to spend 10 hours with these characters to be like, oh, I know who this is. Like, no, you kind of get that character out the gate, and then you can kind of develop a little bit more as you go through the game.
Yeah, I think it's a good example of tropes are not always a bad thing. Like tropes are what they are because they're often useful. It's just if they're done
and also 'cause
lazily.
they happen in real life.
and
People exist.
and I think you're
Well-
kind of right with that. Oh, real quick, Justin. I think Dave's right with that because I can understand so much about these characters without doing that origin story that is 90% explaining this guy is this trope. We essentially get that out of the way by understanding he's a trope, and then we learn a lot more about the characters without going over the obvious. But I'm sorry, Justin, kind of cut you off there.
Hey, it's your show, man. I'm just here to talk too much and get in the way. I forgot to mention this before. That scene with the blood, right when you meet the ninja, right before the Otacon scene, I think it's important to mention too. At least for me personally, I know that there were horror games before then, but at that time, the only other graphic game that I ever saw was the first Resident Evil, which scared the crap out of me when I was like 12, 13 years old. So seeing that scene was also like, this is really intense for a young kid to see something like that. I remember that standing out a lot, just as much as Dave mentioned, was seeing like the characters shaking and going through these like really visceral moments of these real like gripping and graphic scenes. And when you look back at it now, it does look funny. Or you look at the spraying of the blood, and it doesn't hold up well. But when you pull it into that context, you're like, dude, this was a risky move at the time. But to your point of that archetype that these characters fall into, I think it's totally done by design, and the dialogue that's written goes along with it very well. But we have to remember, like, even when we're looking at the front cover, remember, like, this was stolen from
Yes.
something else. And using that trope automatically kind of puts you in the seat of what was happening. But for me, I felt, as Miss Moon said, the relationship between Otacon and Snake is absolutely hilarious. You know what I mean? You have those two polar opposites of like, the jock and the nerd kind of thing. And Otacon has his own fun character moments that make him, lovable in his own way. But I think what's interesting is that if you are a young kid who was playing the game at the time, you have all these gripping moments that happen. And then you just saw all this blood and all this craziness. And then you find a guy who's sitting in a locker who just literally pissed his pants. And you're a young kid. And now you can understand who these characters are, even if you're younger, because you've seen different movies. At this time, I saw Terminator 2. I've seen these things. You know what I mean? You have certain like archetypes that you know. But that was the first person in the game where you're just kind of like, wait a second. This is not only the comic relief, but now this is somebody who's actually like somebody that the player can relate to as well, too. Like, what is going on? What is happening? Like, I'm kind of like, dare I say, like scared to see what's happening, and I don't know what's next. And I have my hand on the pulse, and I kind of understand it, but I'm also very confused and like, what is this? And I think at that time, that relatable character, I think, stands out even more because at that point in time, there really isn't anyone who falls into that archetype unless you are maybe the quarterback, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is all definitely the strength of this game, and it was one of the first games to really pull that off, particularly because it was so early in the voice acting days. And this is, again, you mentioned Metal Gear or Resident Evil, like games just like 2 years before this, and even at the time of this game, the voice acting was straight garbage with most games. So this was one of the first games that I remember playing that had a significant amount of voice acting, where it's like, this is the bar got set, moved way up when it came to this game, and especially for its time, which really brought the characters to life. Because this would be a completely different game if it was the voice acting didn't do so much of the heavy lifting that it does.
Yeah, if they had the voice actor of Duke Nukem being Snake, I think this would be a whole different conversation right now.
And even then, like Snake is, I remember watching an interview where David Hayter was talking about they're doing voices for the first game, and he did this voice of Snake as a joke, and then they loved it. But it's like one of those things where it makes me think of movies like Big Trouble in Little China or something, where the movie shouldn't work, but it just does. And like Snake is so like badass, over the top. It's silly, but it rides that line where it's like awesome.
And you and
go ahead.
can I just add one quick thing? The way you were all talking about that, it made me think about Hideo Kojima's work now and how much I miss the way he writes characters and the way he did, during Metal Gear Solid and even some of his earlier works. And and this is coming from someone who's a huge fan of the way that he writes and the way that he thinks. He has a very interesting mind, to say the least. But sometimes the issue I have with his current characters, like, I don't know if any of you have ever either seen Death Stranding or watched or played it for yourself for a little bit, but his characters today, when you play them, the ones that you can play versus the ones that are just non-playable characters, they don't have that same kind of personality the way that his previous characters did, like in Metal Gear Solid, because clearly they're based on real people. These are actors that he asked to play, like Norman Reedus and Mads Mikkelsen to play in his game. And that's fine to a degree, but it can sometimes take away from the personality of having an original character like Snake and Otacon, and having an original voice actor kind of bring those characters to life. And playing Metal Gear Solid again, it made me really appreciate the uniqueness of these characters that I don't get that same feeling from the way Kojima currently writes, because most of the time he wants to have his favorite actors play these roles. And sometimes that's just exactly how it feels. Actors playing a role in his game and not like actual characters. So I really appreciate that about his earlier works, for sure.
That is a super interesting topic to throw around. And the first thing that pops into my head is thinking about how his fallout with Konami went. And thinking about at the time that he made such noise with Snatcher and Police Knots that they gave him the opportunity to work on this game for a sizable amount of time. Being young, writing at that time, coming up with an original idea that he kind of poked around with before, but actually had time to stick his teeth into it. Was this lightning in a bottle, or was it a perfect combination? And then you think about his fallout, and then you think about how the gaming industry is now compared to what it was then. And I wonder if it's just like, if that is a bigger influence in how he's writing his characters now, like having to push out games faster. to work contractually with other people, having a certain standard hit something else, except in comparison when this was made, it was a whole different type of landscape. You have to think that that level of creativity might have been able to get fostered a lot better than now, because now it's the expectations are so high. You know what I mean? And who knows what the answer is? But I think that's a really good point that you bring
Yeah.
up, Miss Moon, because you're right. The characters in this game are night and day compared to some other ones. There's
Yeah, I think
no doubt about it.
definitely. So I haven't played the Death Stranding games. I know more of the first one than the second, but yeah, it's clearly just like I'm getting these actors are almost playing like the caricature of themselves. Like Norman Reese is like essentially playing Norman Reese, the actor in the
Yeah.
game. I do think part of the issue I kind of had with a big issue I think I had with Metal Gear Solid 5 is I do think this is true for a lot of creatives, is there is a lot of truth to like restriction breeds creativity. I think a lot of the issue, this is kind of more of a tangent, but a lot of the issue I had with a game like Metal Gear Solid 5 is this is what you get when you just let him off his chains. And I think there's something to be said about it's a push-pull relationship where it's like sometimes, because I think it happens a lot with directors too, it's like sometimes you have to have restrictions on them because whether they just get
effect.
Yeah, the Tim Burton effect. They just become essentially a caricature of themselves, and
yeah,
and it gets like silly.
Everything's
it's just
black and white stripes now because I can do whatever I want.
And you need that person like, no, we're not giving you the money unless you come to some compromise.
There are some rails.
Yep.
Yes.
Push things forward on the rails. Yeah.
You're not wrong about that, because there are some odd moments in Death Stranding. I love that game series to death, but yeah, Kojima could benefit from having like an editor on the side to tell him,
This is
hey,
one of the odd moments when you like can go in the shower and then what's his name, Guillermo del Toro joins you in the shower.
that is one of many. Yes.
I don't know the context to that scene, and even if there's context to it, but I just have seen that and was just like, what is going on in this game?
If I remember correctly, I think he was dreaming. The main character, when you have him go to sleep for the night, at random moments he'll have dreams, and that might have been one of them.
So we won't keep touching on necessarily every boss fight. We can kind of talk about them all at the end, but one we have to touch on for sure is the fight against Psycho Mantis. So this is a pretty famous boss fight. This game, I'm sure, was not the first game to do fourth wall breaking. In fact, I know the second Metal Gear did fourth wall breaking. But this fight is just so interesting and historic in a lot of ways, where he will read your memory card, comment on how you've played the game. So if you've like died a lot, he'll call you reckless. He says a couple different things he'll mention and bring up. But most famously is he literally can read your mind by reading your inputs, and you have to change from player 1 port to player 2 port. Unfortunately for me, watching my brothers play and figure it out, like it didn't impact me the way it would have them, because I remember watching them play this fight for a long time until they finally figured out the how to beat him. So back when I did play it finally for myself and then Twin Snakes, I knew the gimmick. But I'm interested to hear from the rest of you. When you first got to this fight, do you remember, did you know the gimmick of switching the controller ports, and just your overall thoughts just on this fight and all the fourth wall breaking?
I'll knock mine out pretty fast because seeing as I didn't play this game before, I had already heard about this boss just through the, gaming zeitgeist phenomenon. So I had already had previous knowledge. I mean, even now, this is a fairly like innovative thing. So in 1998, it was probably, you know, destroying the fourth wall completely. But yeah, I'd heard of it, but it was still a good boss fight. So you got that.
If there
It's
was
a time.
one... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Shadow. No, you're
No,
fine, man.
You talked. Well, if there was one thing I knew about this game was the Psycho Mantis fight and how he reached a memory card, so it was not a big surprise to me. One thing I'm very curious, but I don't think any of you played the digital version with the modern system. Just very curious about how this boss fight worked on a modern system.
They add a way in the game to switch your controller port. I know when I played it on PS5, the remaster. I'm assuming same thing for you, Blue, or did you do something?
So on PC, I had a controller plugged in, and so he would read the controller inputs. But if I swapped to keyboard and mouse, or I guess it was just only keyboard essentially, he couldn't read the keyboard inputs.
What is this device?
Too many buttons. Yeah.
No, I know, and if you play like the remastered version, if you go to the pause, so you can either straight up, I know, like on the PlayStation, still change your controller port through like the settings, I believe, but there's like a way in the menus they let you change it to.
Yeah.
How about you, Dave? Do you remember your first Psycho Mantis fight, or were you like
I
most of
don't-
us watching?
See, that's the thing. I don't remember doing the controller switch because it was not a big topic of conversation, really. It's not like everyone I knew was playing Metal Gear Solid. So I don't recall the first time playing it that I would have done that, but I feel like if you fail enough times, isn't there some other... I thought there was some other way
If
that you
you
could
die,
fight it normally, like after so many fails, which I'm good at in certain games. So I probably did the alternate method if there was one.
Yeah, there's two things that can happen. Is if you do die a bunch of times and you keep calling, I think Campbell, he will just straight up tell you to switch controller ports. And then there's two statues, and if you break the statues, and
that's what it is. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yes, it's maybe that's what I don't know because that was being old. So I don't know quite what I would have done originally. Like since then, yeah, the controller port switch, which is super cool. But yeah, I don't recall naturally figuring that out. Maybe somebody told me, or I don't really recall, but I doubt I figured it out immediately. I don't know. I don't really remember, but yeah, I feel like there was an alternate method. That probably is what I did.
Yeah.
Break
There's statues. Yeah, I think they like resemble his parents. So if you like knock the mask off the statues, it, like
his psychic connection.
Yeah, it freaks him out or something, and then you can start to shoot him.
So Psycho Mantis didn't call you out for playing Suikoden?
Yeah, that's what we got to test too on stream. Yeah, we got to see. Like,
Yeah, how many
for very specific saves to be read.
He mocks you when he sees your playtime in FF7 is maxed out at 99 hours, 99 minutes.
These have max playtime.
I see you're a giant nerd and you love to play this game. You're just like, wait, what?
Correct.
I didn't. This is why I bought this magazine, because at the time I didn't have enough friends at recess to give me the answer to this. And admittedly, I broke a controller playing this. I remember him reading the Symphony of the Night save file, and I was just like, what is happening. It was just like, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. And then I finally got the magazine after breaking the controller and not playing the game for a while. And then I figured out like how to switch it. And I just thought, this is the most remarkable boss that I think I've ever played in a video game ever, which is, I have to say, for Blue and for Shadow to say that they have heard about this many years later is, on one hand, remarkably awesome, and I think speaks volumes to what to like the greatness in this game that we've been gushing about for a while here, but also like the frustration and the joy and the realization to see it happening. Like I remember reading this and being like, no, and then plugging it in and putting the controller there, and I was like, oh my god, like I almost feel like you guys are robbed of that. So it's really like an interesting thing. Like, so happy that all this time it still holds so much weight in the gaming zeitgeist or whatever, you know what I mean? But for you guys not to have that experience, to have it ruined is
Yeah, it's just like one of those. It's like kind of reminds me of like Planet of the Apes, where everyone just knows the twist, and the twist is like they even put the Statue of Liberty on the cover of every copy of that movie you can buy. So it's like no one ever gets to live that twist. Like look up a copy of DVD or VHS of Planet of the Apes, and it has the Statue of Liberty in the cover. And it's just like, oh, the big twist at the end of the movie. Let's just
how many people don't know how Empire Strikes Back ends? You know what I'm saying? It's like it's too far gone. But it's really cool that you guys still like enjoyed it and still found it to be like a cool experience. And I think that really speaks volumes. Because it is a very menacing and creepy character. And another thing worth mentioning is being a kid and playing the scene where Meryl's possessed, where you're just like, is going like the dialogue there, and her once again, you know, playing to the crude nature of Kojima's little Easter eggs, like her saying, like, you know, calling out that Snake's attracted to her, things like that, like literally reading his mind. You're just like, dude, this is bizarre. This isn't just like an espionage game anymore. Like, what am I playing? And I think at that point it starts to shift and becomes a really interesting game at that point in time.
I also think the legacy, why this legacy is so big, is like, for my knowledge, no one has done anything similar since, and it's decades since this game released. Like, I haven't heard about a game reading your memory, or you have to change controller ports. It was one and done thing, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I feel like if anyone did it now, they'll just be like, "Oh, this is just ripping Metal Gear Solid." But
there have been a couple of games that have done like vaguely similar ideas of like sort of breaking the fourth wall. The one that comes to mind, which I think I've brought up before, is One Shot. It's like a indie RPG. Which does something similar with like PC, where you have to kind of go outside the game and mess with files to get the conclusion of that game. So it's very similar in the idea. It's not obviously like a boss fight or anything, so it's
because
different genre and stuff. But
I forget what game it is. Blue, I don't think it's one. It's Island something. I know it came out.
Oh, Pony Island.
Pony Island, where I think if you, I guess spoilers, kind of, but part of like that game is they have you literally like rename the exe of the game, I believe, and then like delete it because it's like that becomes like a plot point, like it's that fourth wall breaking, where it's like,
well, and they kind of like mind screw you, where they're like, you have to keep the game installed forever, or like there's something about like you have to uninstall the game or don't uninstall the game, and like there are characters in the game that are trying to trick you to do one or the other. Like they're like, go uninstall the game right now, and that's like a bad idea.
I think the others want you to
vice versa.
rename the EXE because it's like you
Yeah.
can't delete it because you'll kill them. But so yeah, there aren't too many other games that have done like the fourth wall breaking the way this game did, especially mechanically. Because I can think of other games that do fourth wall breaking, but the fact that this one also does it like straight mechanically, I think is super interesting.
They link the gameplay mechanics, and they kind of like justify it narratively by like giving you a character that is psychic and can have this weird knowledge.
And he is there isn't the only, but he's really the only major paranormal aspect of the game. Everything else is played still like over the top action movie, but for the most part, the other characters in like Foxhound aren't necessarily like supernatural the way Psycho Mantis is.
Well, I don't know. The number of times you have to kill Liquid is pretty supernatural.
Yeah, he just keeps coming. I suppose just because we're starting to get up there in time, we can let's talk a little bit about Liquid and Metal Gear Solid. So you eventually get captured. You'll start to be tortured, and they're trying to find out about the PAL code and everything that Snake knows. This is where you can get two different endings of the game, whether you resist the torture or give in. And if you give in, Merle will die, and the game will end with you and Otacon escaping. If you resist, she doesn't die, and you escape with Merle at the end. But towards the end of the game, you find out that the PAL code card that you get it actually activates the nukes and doesn't disarm them. And this is all part of the plot by Liquid. They accidentally killed the DARPA chief, and you discover that the DARPA chief you talked to was Decoy Octopus, the master disguise. But you also find out Master, which I know like the first time I played this game back in the day, I never did too many codex calls. Like I didn't call for help a lot. So like when you find out that Master is dead and it's really just Liquid, that wasn't like, didn't catch me super strongly just because I was just like, oh, I rarely did codex calls unless if they called me or they're mandatory. But how does everyone kind of feel about Liquid being, when you found out it's Snake's twin and just like the character in general, kind of his motive? I do think it is probably, unless you go into some of the lore to the game, his like motive behind Big Boss is really hard to understand. I remember being really confused about that for quite a while until I really started to play Metal Gear Solid like 2 and 3, and then like, oh, I kind of understand a little bit more of his motive. But
Yeah, I
that's the
know.
interest. Oh,
Oh,
you
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Dave. Oh, I was just going to quickly say that that's kind of a common theme with these games, especially for me. You know, experiencing them and playing them so young, you don't really understand a lot of the concepts that are being thrown at you until you get a lot older and you play them again and you're like, "Oh, that's what they were getting at. Now I get it." Because, you know, at that age, you're like, "What in the world is a meme?" Of
yep.
course, now we throw that word around like candy, but back then, you know, that concept was so foreign, but it was fascinating at the same time. You know, you wanted to know more, but yeah, at that age, you were bound to be confused by some of these complex concepts because they were talking about some pretty deep stuff.
And I think it's even fine to be confused as an adult too, because you even get a little out there with things once in a while.
Right. So Liquid is a Sephiroth clone because he had the S cells, right?
Yeah, and Snake is going to the reunion.
The snake cells, of course.
Oh, there's a common theme there with soldiers and cells.
Yeah, that's what I always thought about. Yeah, it's like the parallels with FF7 and clone stuff. Because when I first played Metal Gear, I was like, huh? Okay. So I liked this game, and I'm slightly confused. But it's one of those, you got to play them all kind of to fill in all the gaps, I guess, to really, really understand what's going on. So
Yeah, because it pulls.
That's a good question to ask. That's a good question to ask Blue, though. You playing it for the first time,
Mhm.
did you feel like really lost in the storyline, or for the most part, did you like kind of get enough together to be like, all right, I get it, makes sense?
I would say it was like 50-50. There were definitely parts where it was like, okay, this is obtuse to me. Um, the the sort of straightforward version of Liquid's intentions, where kind of explains uh he doesn't want soldiers to be like looked down upon or used as like expendable shock troops, essentially, kind of makes sense to me. Um, but then it kind of segues into like, but we also got to deal with like the super soldier stuff, and then also nukes. So it's juggling a lot of, or maybe not juggling, but it's spinning a lot of plates, and some of the plates make a lot more sense than the other ones. Like what, like the cyber ninja thing? I was like, what's the whole? That didn't make any sense to me at all. I was like, this guy just comes out of nowhere, kills an entire like half the base worth of people, and then like just helps you in the end. And I'm like, okay,
even though one of us will die in this fight.
yeah, it's like,
what?
Yeah, that I was just bewildered. Like,
Yeah,
so,
because
there were some things.
because it does essentially, this is like the third game in the series, because like this has taken all the lore from Metal Gear 1 and 2. So it is, I know the Twin Snakes, I forget if the PlayStation 1 has a version of this, but Twin Snakes has like, it's like 30 minutes of movies you can watch of like the briefing that goes into a lot more detail. You
I don't think
go, so I don't know if I think the PS1 has like something you can read that kind of
Yeah.
gives the background.
It's not a lot. It's
Yeah.
probably like a page worth of text.
Right,
And
yeah,
it just
so-
sort of just like, you went and killed Big Boss, and that was that was the thing that happened.
So I think that is an advantage of the Twin Snakes. If you care about the lore, why it's again, it's like something like 30 minutes long, and it breaks down it a lot more. It's still, I think, is confusing because the concept of like Big Boss and what he was about still doesn't make a ton of sense. I think 2 really fleshes that out and makes it a lot more interesting. But yeah, as a kid, I was always kind of like, oh, Liquid just wants his soldiers to be free. Like, that's nice. and then I was just like, oh, they're just clones. I didn't really think of it more than that, but there's definitely a lot more going on, especially if you continue the series.
Yeah, when I played it when it came out, I just took it for exactly what it was, and it made perfect sense to me at that time. I didn't think that there would be more. I didn't take it as anything more. And I replayed the game so many times that I got familiar with it. But I just remember bought into the game so much when it came out that when you find out that a brain fart after I just said I played the game so many times. What's his name? Master, whatever, is Liquid. I just remember being like, what? It just completely blown away, and just like it just had me hook, line, and sinker. And I thought he was great. I thought it was a great counter, like parallel to Snake. I thought he was a great like final boss, so to say. Even though I don't know. Well, I guess he is the final boss. You fight Rex before him, so I guess he would be the final boss of the game, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so you end up fighting Rex. He essentially has the 2 phases. The first phase where you're like attacking the radar dish And then the second phase, when that gets destroyed, I do think the Rex fight is very weak and should have been a lot more epic. I'm sure part of it's because I've played this quite a bit, but I handle playing on hard. I struggled a little bit more some other bosses. I think technically I only died 12. I think I died like 4 times in this game, but like 3 of those were running into traps, floor traps. But a lot of the other bosses playing hard, it got down to the wire where it's like almost had used all my rations and then like beat them like right at the end. Rex, both forms were a cakewalk. I do wish the fight was more exciting. How does everyone kind of feel about the actual fight against Rex?
I think it does its job just fine. I do like the battle between Liquid at top of Rex and everything is burning and this is it. Feeling like we're gonna die here, I'm gonna take you out before that. So I like that setting.
I like
I'll
the
strong
theme and
opinion either way towards it.
I like the theme and like narrative of that fight, but I do think specifically the fist fight against Liquid at the end's probably weaker than Rex and is probably the weakest fight in the game, just because like, to be frank, the melee combat is very rudimentary, and it's kind of just you're just running around punching him, and then you just it's not like you're dodging him, but it's not even really like you're dodging. You're just like kind of just running until he does like a attack animation, then you run up and punch him. But I love the Rex fight too. I love like the setting and the theme. I just find like you just both phases are essentially the same thing. You're just shooting it with the rocket, and most of it's just again kind of like the fight on top of him. You just kind of just run. He shoots. Once the missiles all hit, you stop and just shoot a rocket, and then you just start running until the missiles hit the ground again, and then stop and shoot a rocket. But
how would you like redo this segment then? Like, what were your wishes for this last boss to be?
I think the best thing they could have done was try and find a way to make you utilize at least another type of gun or a way to attack it. Like, you use the rocket and that does an opening where you need to do something else. I just don't like that, how both the dodging the damage is essentially, again, playing it hard on Twin Snakes. I just essentially just ran in a direction, and I think I only got hit like once or twice by missiles. So I just think trying to force you to, especially you have this whole arsenal at the end of the game of all these like guns and equipment and everything you've collected, and you essentially don't really need to use any of it besides the Stinger missile.
Yeah, maybe
for
like.
me,
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, man.
I've just thought of something. Maybe you were like taking limb for limb from Rex, like you'd like decapitate the right arm, then the left arm, and then the right leg, and so on. Maybe that could have made it more.
Yeah, I think something like that would be interesting too, because I think for the most part you can lock onto other parts of Rex, but I think it's basically if you shoot those, it just is like you wasted that shot. So I think having like mechanics around, and maybe you can like damage them and break them, but yeah, I think what you're mentioning, I think could be more interesting, is having you have to pick up on destroying certain systems in different orders or something could have made the fight, I feel, more satisfying, at least to me.
Number one, how many of you guys actually own this?
I own it on PC and PlayStation.
Yeah, I got the
s-
PS5 version, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here
That's
thumbing
a full
through this
collection.
right now.
Hmm.
This is in that guide. I don't know if you guys have ever thumbed through this, but I've never looked at this in as much detail as I am right now. I'm forcing myself to do so. I got this as a gift. This book is absolutely amazing. So just a side note, like flip through those pages because there's some really cool stuff in here. But to your point, I remember. I know we can't talk about everyone, but I'd be regretful if I didn't mention Raven because Raven still to this day is possibly one of my favorite video game characters of all time. And I remember playing it as a game, and that was one of those characters, like Filbert mentioned earlier. You didn't want to die. Like you felt for that character so much. It's awesome. I mean, out of all the action figures I can have, this is the one that I still have hanging around in the toy room. But I remember when I got to the Metal Gear fight. I was so emotionally drained by all the other characters that were there that I was just like, this is whatever. I didn't think it was bad at the time, like, but I remember having so much fun with the other individual enemies that it just didn't seem like it held the same emotional weight, mainly because it was a giant, anime robot, maybe, you know what I mean, and it didn't have dialogue like everything else, but it just didn't seem like it held that much, and I think I was more invested in all the characters at that point in time, so it was okay. But I do remember when Metal Gear Solid 2 came out, or before it came out, I remember when I was playing the demo, which forced me to play Zone of the Enders. I remember being like, wait a second, like, why couldn't we have this type of game dynamic in against Metal Gear and have like some sort of machine or something? Because I remember, just like you said, Filbert, you have all these like ammo, like all these items, and you don't really use many of them. And it's like, man, it would have been so much nicer to like fight that thing with like a Zone of the Enders robot or something like that, like something else to be a little bit more action packed. It would have been, I think, a little bit better.
I think it probably suffers a lot too, especially watching gameplay footage. The fact you're fighting it in a relatively small hangar, you're fighting this big, like, I'm sure there's limitations on the PlayStation, but even like the Sniper Wolf area was like big, and I'm sure there would be ways to do it. But I think if it would have been like an outdoor, bigger area where you had to actually use more of like the environment and just allow you to make the fight more interesting. Because yeah, it definitely is just like it's gonna shoot missiles at you. You just run in a straight line. Once they hit the ground, stop and shoot with a stinger. And the fact that it has like again like the two phases and they're essentially the same mechanic, except now you're just shooting liquid in the open hatch. It's just always something. Yeah, I remember even back in the day, I was just like, we're fighting like this essentially super weapon, and it is probably, in my opinion, one of the easier bosses of the game. Because like what you're saying, like the Raven fight, I think part of the reason that fight's so memorable is I think that is probably one of the harder fights in the game. He takes a lot of damage. I know when I was playing on my playthrough, I was so close to dying to him so many times. And you're laying, and that's a fight too where you can use the equipment. You can use the Nikita. You can place claymores down. You can place C4 and wait for him to walk by C4 and blow it up. And then you can just try and run up and get shots like with the FAMAS or something. And again, you don't have very many options when it comes to Rex. It's just kind of pretty simplistic. It also made me sad as a kid to destroy the T-Rex robot.
No, I have to go, but I wanna share one more thing before I head out.
Yep.
Is so Game Wife, basically her favorite movie of all time is Speed with our boy Keanu. And if you listen to the opening credits music to Speed, it is Metal Gear Solid. Please
What?
listen. Please, yeah. At some point, I do have to go, but at some point, listen to that. Maybe you can listen to it real quick right now. Look it up. Opening credits music to Speed, and it is so Metal Gear, like clearly Metal Gear was like, ooh, we should be inspired by this because it is so Metal Gear Solid. And every time we watch, I'm like, yep, I feel like I'm playing Metal Gear Solid right now before Keanu shows up. Yeah, look that up. Do it. You'll
All
probably
right,
have to
yeah.
YouTube it.
I'll pull it up. But appreciate you coming, join us, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was fun. Good old Metal Gear Solid. Now I gotta play it on stream. I gotta play some on stream.
We gotta play the broken disc.
Yes, I'm gonna hunt for it tomorrow for
All right.
sure.
All right,
All right, guys,
appreciate
see you
it.
later. Have a good night.
Yep, see you later
Bye,
this week.
Dave.
Goodbye. Bye. You know what's interesting about that point that he brings up? They just, I don't know if you guys have seen that video that's surfacing around, but there's that, somebody showed Kojima some composer who wrote a song. You guys know what I'm talking about or no?
Yeah, I posted it on I think it was the music channel or web videos
Oh, you did?
on Discord. I was shocked because in all of my years I did not know about that.
I wonder if this song on Speed, we should look this up, is actually that same song. Or if it's just maybe it's something that Dave it reminded Game Life of those songs. But that's interesting. Wonder if it's just all these songs have a familiar type of feel to them or something. I don't know. It's very interesting though.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to have it keyed up. So I'll play it at the end here. But yeah, so once you defeat, so you kind of defeat Liquid, what essentially twice. There's two phases of him in Metal Gear. Then you have to fight him on top after his like super long monologue, probably one of the longest in the game. I'm assuming 2 Blue. That's probably where you're the most confused when he starts going into the cloning and the big boss backstory and lore.
Yep.
Which I do think that is definitely a weakness of the first game, is there should have been more to explain that, because it's almost like there's just too much assumption that the player has a lot more knowledge of the first games going into this. But this is at the time too, you find out, depending on if you gave in a torture or not, whether Meryl is up there alive or dead. After you defeat Liquid, you go to escape with Meryl if she's alive, and Otacon is essentially resigning himself to die because there's bunker busters being sent to destroy the base, because essentially the Secretary of Defense, I believe, is like taking over the mission and is trying to cover everything up. Otherwise, you escape with Otacon, and this is where you fight Liquid again, where he somehow not only survives essentially getting beat to death, but falling like 30, 40 feet off the top of Metal Gear and starts to chase you down in a Jeep. What's everyone's kind of final feelings on the last hurrah of the Jeep chase?
That probably felt the most Hollywood out of that entire game. That whole last act just felt like the ending of an action movie. It just ticked all of the boxes.
Yeah, Justin's talking about like Terminator. It definitely has that like Terminator. It's just like the machine just stands back up when he thought it was defeated.
Yeah, it definitely has.
Go ahead.
It has that over the top feel, and I think that's like kind of the last hurrah. The fight itself isn't horrible. I know some people have like a little bit of trouble with it, but it does make you kind of think that, like, you know, you're fighting this unstoppable force that just can't be stopped. You know what I mean? In every single way, shape, and form. I remember just like thinking, like, how long is this going to go on for? I remember when I was younger, it just that tunnel seemed like it would never end.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that the late game boss fights were super frustrating for me. I think a big part of it also is the fact that you have to fight Liquid repeatedly. And in addition to that, there's also the reveal that he was like basically a double agent, not really double agent, but he'd infiltrated your organization and was Master Miller the whole time. It was just like it was his show to lose the whole time. Like he was manipulating things from the very start, and it still ended up kind of in a weird, a weird place because they messed up and ended up having the DARPA chief die, like, or not DARPA chief, but the other guy who had the key, or was it the DARPA chief?
Yeah, DARPA chief died accidentally. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like he goes through all of this, right? Accidentally, yeah.
Because you then find out. I don't know how much is in the PlayStation 1 version, because I think some of this was added because of Metal Gear Solid 2, but so I guess, do you remember Blue in the did you watch the after credits scene? Did it have one where it's Otacon, or not Otacon, Ocelot on the phone? Was that in the original PS1 game?
Yes, there is. Yeah, where Ocelot is on the phone, and you find out he was working for Solidus, I think.
Solidus, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't remember the context of who that was. I don't think that name is ever. Maybe they name drop it like one other time somewhere, but I don't really remember any of the details about why that's relevant. And I'm like, I just at the time presumed that it was going to come up in a sequel, and I was like, okay, they have some seeds.
So I guess it's interesting that they do name drop Solidus in the PlayStation 1 version. I forgot about that.
I don't think they mentioned him or mentioned that name earlier in the game. I could be wrong, but I don't think that they do. I think that was like a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
In the Twin Snakes version, he does not say Solidus. He says Mr. President.
Oh, interesting.
So
he says both. Like he drops the name Solidus and says Mr. President.
All right. So if that because it's the same person. Solidus is the president. So, but yeah, eventually kind of I just was getting at that Liquid kind of had all this going on, but then you kind of find out that Ocelot actually didn't accidentally kill the DARPA chief, and like he's like doing like a double agent, like who knows what. You really, at the end of this game, you really don't even know where Ocelot's loyalties lie.
Yeah, well, and they kind of, I don't think springing it on you probably isn't the right terminology, but they do make a lot of like major sort of twist turns right at the end. So obviously there's like Liquid's reveal. There's also like Campbell getting removed and arrested. Don't they arrest somebody else too? Like half the cast of characters, it seems like.
Essentially, like all your support like gets arrested and then gets released once you like take out Liquid and Campbell gets back control, and like the department, the Secretary of Defense like gets arrested and taken off. And they cancel like the nuclear airstrike and everything. Which means if you save Meryl, Otacon doesn't die now because the base doesn't get bunker busted.
They want you to feel like all your hope is gone. They just start like killing off everything, basically. I mean, not actually killing them off, but you know what I mean? No one's going to save you now.
And I know Miss Moon talked about this in the pregame, but really at the end of the game, it's kind of discussed all through the game, but definitely with Liquid's monologue and then with Snake and specifically Meryl's ending, it does touch on a lot of the nature versus nurture theme with the dichotomy, like the differences between Snake and Liquid being twins. And then even though Liquid thought he was the inferior, he wasn't, and Snake was the inferior when it came to like all the genetics, but Snake was still successful over the superior clone. So a lot of that is brought up, and I do think it does wrap up the narrative pretty nicely. There's still a little bit of messiness, I think, with the story. Part of that was for better or worse for sequel stuff. I think just with the nature of Kojima, of his storytelling, I don't think he's someone who believes every end needs tied. He's probably, I think he's someone who he is fine with some stuff being unresolved, but
Yeah, it was the kind of ending, whether it was Meryl's or Otacon's, the basic theme at the end of the game was, you have a choice, basically. There may be some things about your environment that you can't control how they affect you, but, ultimately you do have a choice of what you do with that um, when you live your life. And even though I didn't get the Otacon ending, but that one's actually my favorite one.
yeah.
In particular, the Twin Snakes version, because down to this day, I still don't know why they made the choice to have Otacon just tripping and falling over the snow constantly. He does not do that in the PS1 version, but it is so comical. But I just that's definitely my favorite version of the ending. But and just hearing Naomi in the background trying to give this monologue about choosing life and making your own decisions. But I think even though there were some things left open-ended, I think it tied it up pretty neatly about despite having things that are in your nature, you still have a choice about what you do about it, basically.
I think that
Yeah.
him falling over was that's Nintendo's like humor element. I think they also add like an extra anime scene earlier in the game too when he was describing anime that wasn't in the PS1 version.
They
Aw.
might have, but I mean, the Twin Snakes one is just essentially Metal Gear Solid 1 is an anime. It is just way more over the top, with essentially every scene, which is why some people don't like. I think it fits fine, but I
It's
get,
very 2000s.
yeah, it is very of its time too. But
think
yeah, or go ahead, Shadow.
I think the monologue at the end, like all that, you have a choice, use the life you have, and yada yada yada. I think that became too cheesy and sappy for me. I think that kind of ruins the mood of the game a little.
I think it worked for me. Naomi, I think, is almost like this, like her arc is probably one of the more interesting to get into, just because like she made Fox die. Well, she was part of making Fox die to kill off all these foxhound, and Snake is infected with it. So, especially when you beat this game, it's implied it is going to kill Snake at some point, probably sooner than later. And her kind of coming to terms and realizing like her mistakes. But yeah, I like what Miss Moon's saying too, where a lot of the game, and it is a little bit like on the head, it just kind of, it's Naomi just kind of saying it is, there's things in your life you can't control, that are going to give you advantages or disadvantages, but it's like how you utilize those advantages and disadvantages. Like not everything's predetermined.
Yeah, fate is what you make. Another Terminator reference.
Yep.
Sorry.
Well, and they take steps to kind of mirror Snake against Liquid in various ways. Like when Snake is talking to Meryl, Meryl points out that Snake essentially sort of thrives in combat, which is quite similar to Liquid. And, if they had been in different circumstances, how much of that is their genetics versus, could Snake have been on a different team if his circumstances had been different? Basically, I think is what they're striking at there.
And I think there's also like a lot of Liquid's point too. Snake, they follow these different paths, but this is definitely way more expanded in other games, specifically I think too. But how Liquid's one of his biggest criticisms about Snake is he does the bidding of governments and other people. Like he doesn't fight for himself, and Liquid is fighting for himself, though in the context of what's going on, it's like you can agree with Liquid in that sense where it's like, yeah, you should fight for what you believe in, and Snake essentially has just been a pawn for the government. But at the same time, what Liquid's fighting for is like he's a villain still.
Yeah, you have some despicable beliefs that you're fighting for, so that doesn't make you any better.
So, but I think that's where there is a lot of the story of these games shines the most in some of the ones that come after this too. It's like it's not always just clear cut good guy versus bad guy. Like a big thing if you play some of the other games in the series is there's so much around Big Boss and who Big Boss was, what he believed in, and the crux, and I won't go into spoilers or anything, but the crux between a lot of what villains or the good people in future games are doing is they have different interpretations of what Big Boss wanted, like of what his legacy was and what he wanted. And both camps kind of get some things right and wrong. But it's just them interpreting what someone's belief was differently. And I do think that gets definitely more interesting as you play specifically 2 and 3. And I guess even 4. 4 does a good job of talking about that aspect. And also, I think I forget in the PS1 version, but I did notice in the Twin Snakes version, Naomi lets you know that there's they spotted the snowmobile on satellite, so tell Snake to go and use that to escape, but it's clearly like in a cave.
Yeah, some real advanced satellite technology at that point,
What's your opinions about the end with the dialogue and all that, Justin?
I remember when the game came out, and it's if you don't submit, then you save Meryl, right?
Correct.
Right? Yeah. I got her first, and I didn't know that there were alternate endings. And I actually shut the game off. And that was another thing that when I got that magazine, I was like, wait, you can play this again. I remember turning it back on and seeing that I got, I think it was that you get stealth camo with her, right? It's bad.
You get the bandana with her stealth if you beat it with Otacon.
Okay, then I just remember turning it back on and seeing that an extra item and was just blown away by that. But the time I remember the ending, I thought it was fitting for what it was. I didn't really like second guess it. I can understand like now going back and seeing that some of the stories like some things went unanswered and it just kind of it gave you what you needed to at least kind of move ahead. And I don't know, you can kind of tear it apart, but I remember at the time being satisfied um, with saving Meryl and seeing that, it was a happily ever after, so to say. But I do remember going back and playing it and having the Otacon ending and actually really enjoying his monologue at the end. I definitely remember that. Mm. It's been a while since I've played. I've played chunks of the game, but it's been a while since I've actually seen the ending of the game. It's definitely something I need to go back and out again. But I remember both endings feeling very fondly about them when I was younger, that's for sure.
I also have another question for you. So I went with a different approach to this series. Like I started with 3, Peace Walker, 5, and then 1. The, those are the games I played. Do you think that was a correct choice by me, or should I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Which ones have you played again?
Mm.
I played through the timeline, so 3, Peace Walker, 5, and then 1.
I think that's fine. Because I think in a lot of ways playing the order between 2 and 3 is you're still gonna get a lot out of 2. But you're gonna get different stuff because you're gonna have a lot more obviously contacts and knowledge about Big Boss, which I think in a lot of ways will enhance your experience with number 2. I would honestly, I think playing in that or at like 3, I think playing in that order in some ways I would almost recommend 2, because again, I do think part of you can still obviously enjoy this game without knowing a lot of the lore behind it. But I think when you really understand like who Big Boss was, his like motives and legacy, it does make Liquid even more satisfying of a character because his motives aren't just so much like, why does he want the like remains of this of his dad? Like you there, that's really hard to like understand, other than it's just like almost video game villain, or James, like Justin is saying, it's almost like a James Bond villain. Like I want this like weird obscure thing for some reason because I'm the villain. But there is more like reason to it once if you've played at least 3 prior.
Yeah, I feel like I would have been more confused than I am by 1. Feel like what you're saying, like having some context about Big Boss, is kind of nice to have when going through this game. So it's gonna be fun to see how 2 and 4 adds to that.
That'll be interesting to hear what you think about. 2 is one of my favorite games specifically for like narrative aspects.
Me too.
Yeah, 2 is a really fun game. I ended up falling off. After 3, something about 3 didn't sit well with me, but there was a lot of it that I did like. And then I just played bits and pieces of 4 and 5. And I remember playing 5 and was instantly like, I'm not gonna like this. It was something about how the game mechanics was, something just threw me off. But it's probably because I liked 1 and 2 so much. But I think that's probably I probably wanted it to be something else. Me
Do you,
personally, I can't really chime in on that just because I haven't played the other ones in depth. But I'm also a person that doesn't mind that bit of ambiguity or having things be a little bit mysterious or having breadcrumbs come in and fill out like a larger story. So I wouldn't mind learning things not in a chronological order or like you know what I'm saying in more of I, yeah. I don't know. For me, I wouldn't mind playing them in how they came out. I also think because I grew up playing the games, playing them graphically, gameplay wise as they develop too, I think is a whole other experience as well too. And I'm not sure on how much that will impact how you'll play it jumping around for so much. Because I would imagine it would be kind of hard never playing the first one, playing something like five and then going back to the first one. It would be imagine like Blue said, like I'm having a kind of a sizable handicap having to deal with the shooting mechanic and having to deal with stuff because it is archaic. I still think it holds up, but yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't think anyone in this conversation would disagree with you that there are some things that it's like, yeah, this is of the PS1 era. And thankfully, it didn't have tank controls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So at least they had that going for it. You know.
Thanks for that. I'm not gonna take much time, but I'm just curious, hearing you saying you were a bit disappointed with three. Three is my personal favorite so far. Do you think that's because you're playing Big Boss instead of Solid Snake?
Honestly, I can't remember. And I have it here and I bought it again to put in my backlog because I was like, I want to play this again because I know everyone is like, this is really, really great. I think just it was, if I can remember at the time, I think it was just something about like the game mechanic.
You might have played
Oops.
the original version too that had fixed camera, because then they
That
re-released it as Substance. It's still like on the
substance.
PS2, and that had the 3D, like full 3D camera, like modern controls.
I mean, I'm just taking a shot at the dark, so I don't remember exactly what it was. I have both versions here, and I got them again because I'm like, I need to play this, and because everyone and their mother says that it's fantastic. But I just remember at the time playing it, and maybe it was because I was playing a whole bunch of different types of games, or at that point in time migrating towards music constantly, that I was just like something about it just was not connecting at the time, and yeah, I just didn't see. I didn't play more than like an hour of the game or something, which I know is like a tragedy being such a huge fan of the first and the second one. But own it. I got it again. I will repent for all of my transgressions and we'll play soon. And I will definitely get back to you and let you know how it is. Because I think me playing it now, I'm seeing things in a much different lens. So I think that I give it
Yeah,
what's the term? I give it a better shake, or you know what I
yeah.
mean? I give it more of a time of day, you know.
Yeah, that's always my issue with like 5 was number one, I hated that essentially all the main characters sounded exactly the same. It's like they could have saved money and just had the same voice actor do Oslat, Big Boss, and Master. And then it does like the cardinal sin for, at least for me, with games where it gives you mission ratings and scores, which that triggers a part of my brain where I'm like, I want to get like S score or A score or whatever. But you can't get good scores if you go on loud or call in like helicopters, like, because you have like stuff you can call in and stuff. So then I'm like, I feel like I'm punished if I play with like 80% of the mechanics of the game. And the way my brain's wired is like, then I start playing like stealth mode and stuff, which I'll have fun with. But then I'm like, I just unlocked like all these abilities, but if I use them, I'm like punished by the game essentially like slapping me on the wrist and being like, no, like this isn't how you should play. And that's like another thing that just always never sat well with me, where I'm just like, why are you giving me all these cool tools and then kind of tell me I'm not playing the game right?
That's an interesting thing to bring up. I never felt that it challenged me to want to get like an S tier or something like that, though I can see that. But I remember I went back and I was playing Resident Evil 5 recently. That has the same type of game dynamic where it's like by chapters.
Yep.
And I remember I was like, this is horrible. It didn't mean that like I didn't think that the game wasn't good or didn't have its strong points, but I was like, I don't what? I was like having it breaking up like that, I think really broke the narrative, and it just kind of made me feel like I was playing a video game, if that makes sense. Like, oh, I beat level 7. Cool. Like it was more so like, I don't know, I want to kind of go in the journey and kind of get lost in the game a little bit more than, having things broken off. Oh, you beat it. Congratulations. Now you can go back to the menu. I don't know. It just seems a little, I don't know. Felt it to be very lame, for lack of a better way of describing it.
Well, I think now's a good time so I'll have everyone kind of give your final thoughts about the game, if you recommend it, if there's like a version, if you play multiple, what you recommend more. And then there's a fun little segment idea we'll uh, do if people want to stick around for that. It shouldn't be too long. So I guess we can start with you, Blue. I guess your final thoughts and Metal Gear Solid. Do you recommend someone play it?
I do think it's worth a play. I just from having watched it, I think the Twin Snakes version, the one that you played, is probably the better one to go with, unless you have the nostalgia bug for the PS1 era one, in which case it's completely playable. I think I liked the first half of the game more than I liked the second half of the game, in terms of like gameplay. But I mean, the story throughout is consistently good. So,
Do you
yeah, I
have the urge? Are you interested in trying to play any of the others in the series?
I do have the urge. I don't know. I've kind of ruined the timeline playthrough, I think. So I'm not sure where I would pick back up again.
I would,
Um,
for you, partly just because I'd want to hear your thoughts, because I don't know how much you know about it. I would recommend playing the second one.
okay.
I think, like Miss Moon said too earlier, the second one, won't go into it, but there are some plot points I would want to hear you talk about. I think it does a few things better than any game I've ever seen do. It's like one of those things where I would have beat it when I was like 13, and I wish I didn't play an experience until I was like 18, because a lot of it did like blow me away, but I was still just a little bit too young to, I think, fully grasp the significance of some of those like things that come out. But
Maybe I will get on that second game at some point. Maybe it'll come up in a future EXP Monthly.
Miss
I'm
Moon or Shadow, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm planning to play the second game this year. Then you can take over, Miss Min.
Yeah, I definitely, and this is coming from a biased opinion, of course, but I definitely recommend playing Metal Gear Solid. Um, it definitely, not to keep referring back to Sons of Liberty, but to me, this feels like the foundation of what the second game I feel perfected um, in that iteration. Um, but on its own, it is a great game that if you're interested in that style of gameplay and that kind of storytelling, immediately is going to be right up your alley. It is definitely a game that will pull you in, even if you don't know everything that's going on. There's enough there to keep you engaged and keep you entertained, at least for the most part. But if you're the type that loves story and loves understanding the lore behind the narrative, you will be rewarded sticking with it and continuing on with some of the later titles. But like Filbert said, especially with Sons of Liberty, because that really, in a lot of ways, from gameplay to narrative, and even with some of the fourth wall breaking aspects of it, I feel like that did a much more effective job than the first time around. But when you play Metal Gear Solid, you can see where a lot of that started to build in that generation of gaming. So yes, please go play this game.
Number 2 also has a skateboarding mode too. Yeah, you can't
It
forget
does
about
have,
that.
Oh yeah, the
does have a
important part. I
skateboarding
forgot.
side game. It's not part of the actual game. It's like but they added like a bonus like Tony Hawk.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I would really recommend this game. I think it's amazing. I think the story is amazing. Even as a standalone, I think it's great. And for what I do know about the rest of the series, it's like Miss Moon says, the foundation is there, and it definitely is. It's quite a game. I think the preferred way to play it is the Game Boy Color version more than anything else. So check that out if you get a chance. I'm just kidding. Honestly, I do have that nostalgia bug, and I think that the PS1 version is the best way to play it, even though the Twin Snakes is great. And if you've played the second one, you'll love going back and playing the GameCube one because it's just a really beautiful game. It's really made well. Its little advances in the gameplay itself are a nice delight. And you get to see Mario and Luigi in the game. That's always nice. But yeah, the game is phenomenal, and I don't think if anyone watches this, I don't think you need to hear me talk to a point of nauseum, if that's the right word, about the game. I think the simple fact that it's so critically acclaimed, and I think is in the top 5 highest selling PlayStation games of all time, out of a roster of what do they have, like 7,000 games for that
Yeah.
system. Like, I think that speaks for itself. Um, it's a juggernaut of a game. It's really something special. I think to what Blue said, even though I think the second part of the game gameplay does suffer a little bit. First introduction to the game takes you on an emotional ride and just a fun journey that still to this day. I mean, we all play a lot of games. I don't know if you guys would agree with me, but some games just still don't even hold a stick near it. It's not even close. And that really speaks for something awesome. And like we said earlier, the fact that even like 20 some odd years later, people are still talking about certain bad guys in the game, certain levels, certain things, that's a huge sign. I mean, people still talk about older games to this day, but they're more like these iconic franchisable characters. We know who Bowser is, we know who Mario is, we know stuff like that. Like, who knows Psycho Mantis, this random like dude?
Well,
I don't
apparently
know.
everyone. But no, I no,
I think that's a really good sign. You know what I mean? Like, how many bad guys do you know from pick out for many other games? And I think that's a really really good selling point. So if you've never played it, I would definitely jump in. It's worth it. Definitely worth the time.
Shadow.
I totally see why this franchise has the legacy that it has. Really enjoyed my time with it, despite for some difficult parts due to controls. If you can manage through the controls and fix camera angles, and it has bunch of difficulty options, so it's no shame to play on easy or very easy, and just soak in the story. Just be compared to there's more cutscenes than the gameplay, but if you're fine with long stories and stuff like that, yeah, I recommend it too.
All right. And yeah, quickly for me, I definitely recommend it, especially if you're into any like action stealth games. I do think if you're not super into retro or like PS1 era games, Twin Snakes is probably the way to go. But if you're someone who plays, if you're a big fan of PS1 era games, I would probably recommend that for someone who like still goes back and plays PS1. I personally like the Twin Snakes version more, but that's my personal preference. I do think the PS1 has the better tone, because again, Twin Snakes gets very anime and very like action, like way more action movie. And sometimes that can be a little bit silly, but I enjoy that about at least that game. With that said, though, I'll throw them in the chat. So I did. This was a mix of. I want to do a little segment. This segment did. I think I just called it character team up, but I went through, made a long list of video game characters, and did some random number generating to assign each of you 3. And then I changed a couple of them just to kind of curate it a little bit more. So I'll kind of explain as we go. So blue, you have Gordon Freeman, GLaDOS, and Nathan Drake. I'll put them in chat. Miss Moon, I'm giving you Kefka, Pikachu, and Sora.
If I get Parappa the Rapper.
You can if you want. Shadow, you're gonna get Tifa, Mario, and Mega Man. And Justin, I'm gonna give you we'll throw in Parappa the Rapper.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get Cloud Strife, Samus, and Parappa the Rapper.
Hell of a trio, Philbert.
So you're gonna have 3 choices to make, and I'll go down the line. So we'll start first with blue. So each of you are gonna get a different one. We'll resolve blue first. Blue, there is a meteor coming to hit Earth, and it's big enough to just wipe out the entire planet. Who of those 3 people, of those 3 characters, do you choose to best try and resolve that issue and keep the Earth from being destroyed by a meteor? And kind of pick why.
Probably Gordon Freeman, because he's a physicist and he can science the crap out of a comet and figure out how to deflect it or deal with it in some way, science it up, make it go away.
All right. So Gordon Freeman is now crossed off your list. So for the next 2, you cannot pick him.
Okay.
Miss Moon, Godzilla is attacking your home city. Which of those 3 characters do you recruit to fend off Godzilla, and why?
Ooh. First off the bat, definitely not Pikachu. That poor thing would get stomped in an instant. Oh. And definitely not Kepka. Knowing his character, he would want Godzilla to destroy everything in sight. So my best guess would have to, my best bet would have to go with Sora, because knowing that character, he'll use the power of friendship.
I mean, Godzilla historically does become kind of a good guy, so maybe.
Yeah, he's gonna turn Godzilla to his side somehow and stop the threat.
That's the Disney logic that he can throw at them.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Shadow. Which of these characters would you recruit to help train you to get speedrun a video game to be good enough to get a top 10 world record in a video game speedrun?
Well, kind of go with the classic with the speedrunning. Like, everyone likes to speedrun Mario games. I feel like that's something most speedrunners have, like, touched Mario games to speedrun.
But do you think Mario himself would be the best to train you? And
I mean, he knows the Mushroom Kingdom better than Mega Man.
That's true.
If I were that you. So learning me to do that back jump, soaring through the stairs in 64. Yeah, I will say Mario. He knows his stuff with Mushroom Kingdoms.
All right. And Justin, between your three, your house is haunted with like an evil spirit. Which between Cloud, Samus, and Prapper the Rapper are you recruiting to help dispel
Ooh,
this demonic entity?
probably go with Cloud. I mean, he has got the ability to summon things, right? I'm not a giant Final Fantasy fan, but he could summon something, right? So I think that would be the most appropriate answer. He could summon some sort of, I don't know, it's just something to get the ghost out. That could work, right?
Yeah, he has
You can
magic.
use holy materia.
There you go.
There we go. There we go.
All right. Blue, back up to you. Between your final two characters, pick one to kill off They Never Exist.
They just have to remove them entirely.
They're getting just like none of the games would exist. They don't exist. You completely
man.
kill them off.
I don't think I can do the injustice of removing Portal from the world. So
And
I
you're
think
going to keep the villain.
I think Nathan Drake has to go, and we're keeping GLaDOS.
You hurt me, Blue. You really hurt me now. Ow! Ouch! Ah!
All right, Miss Moon, Pikachu, and Kefka. Are you going to take Final Fantasy VI away from us? So this
Or do
is
you
the same
remove all of
question.
Pokemon? Oh man.
I'm sorry, Pikachu. I love you to death, but you gotta go. I'm sorry. Final Fantasy, anything Final Fantasy is my ride or die. I can't do it.
Oh, I feel Shadow's taking the hits right now.
This is just an excuse to torment me.
Well, you have between Tifa and Mega Man.
Well, this is such an easy
Choice.
Mega Man, of course, no.
like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is my favorite game of all time, so we're keeping Tifa. I'm gonna destroy that useless robot that can't aim. He can just shoot forward, and by that, you're gone.
Goodbye,
Bye-bye.
Blue Bomber. All right, Justin, between Samus and Prapper the Rapper, who's getting Thanos snapped?
This is really hard because I like Ripley better than I like Samus, but there's many Metroid games out there that are arguably way better than Parappa the Rappa. I guess we'll have to kill the little guy. We'll kill Parappa.
Oh no, he does not believe anymore.
Yeah, his kick punch won't save him this time. That's for sure.
All right,
Gotta stop believing.
and then final thing. So with your last remaining character who you did not Thanos snap, just bring up something about one of their games that you absolutely hate or that you absolutely love. So you have GLaDOS, Blue.
Yes. Who doesn't love deadly neurotoxin? That's the best part, right? Deadly neurotoxins.
I mean, it did give us the amazing "The Cake Is a Lie."
Cake. Yep. If you haven't heard that ending song, you owe it to yourself to take the 2 hours to go play through Portal.
Miss Moon. So you have Kefka. So what's something about Kefka, the game he's in, that you absolutely love or hate?
Well,
We might
I
be
know
here
this
for a while.
I'll keep it brief, I swear. Kefka, I know for some people may not think he's the strongest villain in all of the mainline titles because of how, I don't want to say simplistic, but how straightforward his goals are in what he's doing. But he definitely has a certain character and a style to him that makes him memorable, regardless. I think he makes a great villain. He knows how to play up the ruthlessness very well in Final Fantasy VI. And did you say what the worst thing is?
No, just either one.
Oh, okay.
Just in
'Cause I was
case
like,
if someone left a character alive that they hated.
oh, I
Yeah.
gotcha. But yeah, that's definitely one thing I could say about him is he is a memorable, ruthless character for sure.
All right, Shadow. What's something about Tifa or a game she's in that you adore or hate?
So if you have 3 hours to check out, then go to the first episode of the Game Bit podcast where we talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But the stupid amount of time. But if you don't have 3 hours to spare, I will say the story and the written character with the amazing voice acting they do to bring those characters to lives. I really fell in love with the characters for the Final Fantasy VII Remake project, and very excited for a third and the final part.
You're still waiting for the trailer, right?
Summer Game Fest is gonna happen.
That's the thing. I don't know if I want to see a trailer because the trailer from Summer Game Fest for Rebirth, that was wow. What's happening here? So I kind of want to go in dark as possible, but I don't know if that even feasible with being in Discord with so many other Final Fantasy fans. So it's gonna be tough.
All right, Justin, something about Samus or the game she's in that you hate or adore. It sounds like you're a Ripley fan, you're saying?
Yeah, like most things, I could probably talk your guys' ear off, it seems. But with this, I think probably the biggest thing that I love and hate about the game is the fact that it is, it is like a love letter to Alien, yet there are so many garbage releases in the games that are so far away from that it's like that's something that I do hate, and I wish it would like really played into that more and was more of the suspenseful thing that kind of spawned it in the first place. That's something that I do love about it, and games that are similar to it. That franchise spawned so many cool games, including Metroid.
Well, that is just a short little segment I had. Plan on it being recurring, so keep a lookout for that in future EXP monthlies. But we've been going for nearly 3 hours, so I don't want to keep people here any longer. But again, big thank you to everyone taking part, especially Justin, your first time taking part in this. Appreciate it, especially with your vast knowledge and kind of history with Metal Gear. It was that I love when someone comes into one of these games and they have so much connection. Just add so much more to the conversation. But
it's going to be me next month, I think.
Well,
so no, 2 months. 2 months.
2 months, yeah. So next month is Final Fantasy VI.
That's going to be yours. Yeah.
And Pixel.
Oh, yeah.
I had Pixel do the pregame, so I'm going to try and edit that, get that finished up and posted tomorrow. And then the month after is Fallout 1. The month after that, we're doing Star Fox 64. Just again, going Fallout 1 isn't like super, it can be long depending on how you play it, but want to give us a short game to fill in after kind of a longer one. And then there's currently voting if you're on the Discord under suggested games for July's game. So if you haven't, go on the Discord and get votes in. And that voting is open for like 13 more days, so plenty of time. But again, big thank you to everyone joining, everyone in chat, Pixel, Shadow, KP, or Green Shadow, super thank you.
And let's not forget about the game day that appeared too.
Oh yeah, I already forgot about. He's very forgettable.
Who was that guy even?
But yeah, huge thank you to Dave. So, I'll have to. We all have to bug him now to make sure he plays his broken disc of Metal Gear Solid 1 on stream.
We're gonna
So-
have to make it May Gear Solid instead of
You're gonna break Vinny's little
Minecraft
heart.
May.
But all right, everyone in chat, again, thanks. Keep a lookout for the pregame. Probably go up in a day or two, and we'll see you next month for Final Fantasy VI. I'm Filbert with the rest of the EXP Monthly crew.